A verse that I'm often shown by women who are in an abusive relationship or women who have left the church is Malachi chapter 2, verse 16. It's a passage where it says that I hate divorce. And often individuals are told that God hates people who are divorced, or just God hates divorce, so you cannot get divorced. I have some concerns about the passage, but I do believe it has some potential and powerful support for women who are in an abusive relationship. First of all, the verse is not in the most ancient Hebrew manuscripts. And that's a concern that I have. It shows us in the academic community that that verse somehow was not used in the original versions of Malachi. In the Greek translation of Malachi chapter 2, verse 16, it just simply says, if you're going to divorce her, divorce her. We know in the Dead Sea Scrolls community, they did not use that verse either. So that tells me that while the verse is problematic, Malachi is a book that actually speaks in different ages. For instance, in the Malachi 4 passage of scripture that's at the end, it makes the statement that Elijah the prophet was going to come and turn the fathers' hearts to the children and the children to the fathers. Now, it's interesting that a few hundred years later, when the Greek version of Malachi is translated, it says, we'll turn the fathers' hearts to the children and a man to their neighbor, suggesting that this was a different time when they were applying the text. In Luke chapter 1, verse 17, when Zechariah the priest is told that he would have a son, that John the Baptist would be the Elijah who would come and turn the fathers' hearts to the children and the mind of the disobedient to the wise. What we're seeing with Malachi, Malachi was a book that was kind of used in different ages and applied throughout the history of God's people. Now, why that's important when we look at Malachi chapter 2, verse 16 and ask, what is the verse saying? What is it? What is the point here? The book is talking about God being the victim in this marriage with Israel. Throughout Malachi, you see the word covenant over and over again. In chapter 2, verse 14, they have broken the covenant with the wife of their youth. Oh, that's Yahweh. That's God. God is in a hard place in this story, as God has been throughout the biblical text. In the Hebrew Bible, God is the spouse who is turned on, who is hurt, who is abused, who is neglected, who's had multiple affairs. And Yahweh says the same thing throughout the Hebrew prophets that is said in Malachi chapter 2, verse 16. I hate divorce, but I hate a person that covers themselves with violence. God is saying, I'm in the middle. I don't want to continue on this way, but I can't tolerate this. I point out what often with women who are struggling with the divorce issue in the Malachi 2:14 application, as we talk a little bit about Malachi, I point out God is in the position where you were. You said often, I can't do this. I don't want a divorce, but I can't tolerate violence. I won't tolerate violence. That's what God says in the text. What I often encourage women to understand is that the text is not saying divorce is wrong. The text is saying, look, you're in a hard place. Violence is something you don't have to tolerate. You don't have to put up with it. Divorce happens not because of anything you've done, but because of your partner violating the covenant, neglecting the wife of their youth, breaking repeatedly over and over again this covenant. I try to ask clergy as they're teaching on this text to understand that this is not a text to use to speak against divorce. It's actually a text that empathizes with those who are struggling in dysfunctional marriages, in abuse, in situations that are very painful to them, to understand that God understands them. God hears their prayers. They do not have to tolerate violence. They do not have to tolerate abuse. They do not have to tolerate oppression. They can, like God, say, enough is enough.